What really sparks human progress? Fuels innovation, builds lasting prosperity. You might think, oh, brilliant leaders, maybe amazing tech, or just lots of resources. But our deep dive today points to something else, maybe more surprising, but incredibly consistent throughout history: openness. Welcome to the deep dive. We're your shortcut to getting informed quickly and deeply. Today, we're definitely not just scratching the surface. We are plunging into this whole idea of openness. And it's way more than just trade deals. We're looking at openness in ideas, culture, even how governments run things, how societies choose to either embrace the new or, well, close themselves off.
That's exactly right. And the source material we've drawn on for this is incredibly broad. It gives this amazing kaleidoscopic view. We've got historical accounts looking closely at the rise and fall of golden ages, right alongside very current articles, things detailing new policies, huge infrastructure projects, even major societal challenges. And every single piece, really, in its own way, shines a light on these critical choices societies make. Just how open or closed do they want to be?
Okay, so our mission for you is to unpack all these lessons from history and the dilemmas we face right now. We want to help you cut through the noise, understand the huge and often paradoxical impact of choosing openness or resistance, both in the past and, right now in our interconnected world. Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start by going back in time a bit. There's this really compelling historical blueprint. Johann Norberg, he's a well-known historian, argues in his book Peak Human that basically the societies that really thrived over 3,000 years were consistently the ones that embraced openness. Welcoming trade, yes, but also strangers, new ideas, really opening their arms.
And what's really fascinating is seeing this pattern repeat across such different civilizations. Norberg points to ancient Athens, for example. It wasn't just a democracy, though, it was that too. It thrived as a really liberal society. Think low tariffs, genuinely welcoming attitudes to foreigners. The key insight there, I think, is that this wasn't just about making business easy. It was a whole societal commitment to absorbing outside ideas, outside people, and that directly fueled their intellectual and economic power.
A kind of virtuous cycle, then?
Exactly, a virtuous cycle of innovation that just outweighed any sort of perceived risk from foreign influence. And similarly, you look at Rome. It grew incredibly strong, not by building walls, but by strategically integrating the peoples it conquered, learning from them, and maintaining that massive road network. That wasn't just for armies, It was openness made physical, facilitating trade, communication, the flow of goods and knowledge across the empire.
And the flip side, Norberg highlights that too, right?
Yeah.
As a kind of warning.
Oh, absolutely, a stark warning. He talks about Ming China, when the emperors deliberately turned inward, restricted foreign trade, brought in forced labor, stopped free movement. That shift led to a really significant decline. It stifled China's progress for centuries, a clear lesson in the long-term cost of closing yourself off.
Now, Norberg's book is fantastic, incredibly insightful, but it doesn't really touch on Indian examples much. Our sources, though, have been really good at filling that gap, and India's history actually offers some powerful examples where openness seems directly linked to prosperity and cultural leaps.
Absolutely, and the parallels are striking. Take the Mauryan Empire, way back, maybe 322 to 185 BCE. Its stability allowed for huge internal and external trade. They built these massive road networks, like the Uttar Path, this ancient highway connecting the Ganges Plains right out to Central and West Asia, a vital artery.
Facilitating trade in things like spices, silk.
Spices, silk, cotton, exactly. And then under Emperor Ashoka, you have his policy of Dhamma, which actively promoted religious tolerance. That's a kind of cultural, spiritual openness, allowing different faiths, Buddhism, Jainism, Hindu traditions, to coexist, even thrive. It enriched the whole empire. Then jump forward to the Chola Empire, massive maritime trade with China, Southeast Asia, huge economic prosperity. But what's also really insightful is they use an open, merit-based system for picking officials. Competence over birth, ensured good governance. Plus, they were open patrons of arts, sciences, poets, scholars, artists. Deliberately embracing diverse influences enriched their culture massively.
And the Mughals, another key example.
A huge one, from 1526 to 1857. Founded by outsiders, sure, but their incredible prosperity and artistic innovation came from blending cultures, really assimilating with local populations. Emperor Akbar's Suli-Kul peace with all policy is prime example. Got rid of the jizya tax on non-Muslims, encouraged interfaith talks, brought Hindus into high administrative roles.
Leading to that vibrant Indo-Persian blend we see in architecture, art.
Everything. Architecture, art, music, food. A real richness that came directly from being open to integration.
It's really compelling seeing these historical patterns, openness time and again leading to flourishing societies. But here's where it gets really interesting. Norberg connects these ancient lessons right to our modern, globalized world. He argues our current era, especially maybe since 1990, is arguably the greatest golden age ever, precisely because of globalization's openness. But, and this is the crucial bit, he warns that current trends towards isolationism, protectionism, shutting down free inquiry, they directly threaten all those gains.
And this raises that important question, doesn't it? How are modern places, especially India, navigating these different kinds of openness today? If we connect this to the bigger picture, we see very deliberate strategies to open up regions and economies. Look at the transformation happening in Northeast India right now.
With the Act East policy, shifting it from a frontier to a front runner.
Exactly. New railway lines, like in Mizoram, are literally bridging gaps. Some of these bridges are taller than the Qutub Minar, and they're using innovative techniques like the Himalayan tunneling method, which is absolutely key to opening up these incredibly tough terrains, integrating communities that were pretty isolated before into the national economy.
And that boosts local economies. Trade in bamboo, horticulture.
Right. Boosts trade, helps tourism, but also improves access to basics like education and healthcare. Real, tangible benefits.
And this idea of openness isn't just physical connections, right? It's also about rethinking industrial futures.
Yes, absolutely. Our sources talk about the Damodar Valley's potential. Historically, it's coal country, but the vision now is for a green industrial corridor, drawing parallels with Germany's Ruhr Valley, which successfully transitioned away from coal.
So being open to change, to green tech.
Openness to adaptation, exactly. Green tech, like solar, green hydrogen, green steel, and critically creating different kinds of jobs, ensuring a sustainable, prosperous future for people there. Fiscal openness, reforms, they're just as critical now. Look at the GST Council. They made some pretty big changes.
Simplifying the tax system.
Trying to, yeah. Simplifying, reducing GST on things like farm machinery, health and life insurance, essential medicines, even cement. The idea is to lower costs, sure, boost demand, but also improve social well-being and maybe even build trust, using fiscal transparency to help integrate the national economy.
Makes sense. And what about businesses that run into trouble? Is there openness there?
Well, that's where changes to the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, the IBC, come in. They're trying to be more flexible, aiming for faster, fairer resolutions, trying to preserve productive assets, exploring things like pre-packs for smaller businesses, MSMEs.
Pre-packs, what's that?
It basically lets struggling small businesses restructure quickly, openly with their creditors, hopefully avoiding full bankruptcy. It shows a more adaptive, open approach to helping them recover. And another really interesting angle is green public procurement. The government buys a lot of stuff.
Right, huge purchasing power.
So they're starting to embed sustainability criteria into tenders. It's not just about being green, it's strategically using public spending to open up new markets for sustainable goods and services, driving innovation, shifting the whole market towards low carbon.
Okay, so beyond the economy, technology and collaboration are also being transformed by this openness idea. Sources talk about AI agents becoming work buddies. What does that actually look like?
Yeah, it sounds a bit sci-fi, but the idea is AI as more of an integral collaborator, not just a tool you use. It could bridge information gaps, like summarizing complex patient histories for doctors, maybe drafting initial proposals for startups, freeing up human talent for the more complex creative stuff.
And with India's big young population, the demographic advantage.
Exactly. There's a focus on using AI for broad, ecosystem-wide skilling, developing inclusive solutions that help people augment their abilities rather than just automating jobs away. We see examples like AI health guidance or tools drastically cutting down contract processing time. It's about open collaboration with technology.
And collaboration extends to public health too, the One Health framework.
Yes, that's a fascinating example of collaborative openness. It integrates data from wildlife, livestock, human health, all to prevent pandemics.
And vultures play a role. Seems unlikely.
It sounds strange, but yes. The humble vulture, whose numbers crashed partly because of a livestock drug called diclofenac, they're actually vital. They're nature's cleanup crew. Their decline is a slow burn public health issue because without them, pathogens can spread more easily from carcasses.
Wow. So protecting them isn't just about wildlife conservation.
Not at all. It requires what the sources call transboundary collaboration. These birds migrate across borders, along routes like the Central Asian Flyway. It really shows how interconnected environmental health and human health are. You need an open regional effort for global health security. You can't just put up a border against a migrating bird or a virus.
Okay, so we've explored all these amazing benefits, the innovations that openness seems to foster. But the path isn't always smooth, is it? So what does this all mean when things get complicated? Because while openness offers so much, it's definitely complex. It brings challenges, needs really careful handling.
And that really raises a crucial question for societies today. How do you balance those benefits of being open with a genuine need for protection for stability? We see this tension very clearly in strategic trade. Our sources mention the impact of, say, U.S. tariffs on India's exports. That pushes India to look for diverse markets globally.
But there are limits, areas India wants to protect.
Exactly. There are red lines, like protecting farming and dairy sectors. So it's not about rejecting openness entirely, but finding a nuanced approach engaging globally while safeguarding vulnerable domestic areas. Our sources also point to some, concerning trends in political polarization and democratic backsliding. These directly threaten the openness needed for dialogue and ideas.
When politics gets too polarized, it shuts down conversation.
It really can. And one source discusses the dangers when that polarization becomes extreme. It actually cites examples where figures linked to divisive views become targets. Specifically, it points to the tragic assassination of Charlie Kirk in the U.S. The source characterizes this as a symptom of what it calls inward-looking and xenophobic politics, contributing to extreme polarization and even violence. It shows how closing minds can lead to, dangerous fracturing.
A really stark illustration based on that source's analysis.
Yes, exactly how that source presents it. And we see challenges to open governance elsewhere too, like the recent crisis in Nepal, youth uprisings there against corruption, dynastic politics, even a social media ban. It just highlights how critical communication freedoms and meaningful dialogue are.
When those channels close down,
unrest can escalate fast. International human rights groups urged for openness, showing how vital it is for stable governance. Then there's the UN. Our sources analyze arguments that it's lost relevance, partly due to structural issues, like the Security Council veto held by the Big Five and its reliance on just a few nations for funding.
So an organization meant to foster global openness might be hampered by its own closed structure.
That's the question raised, yeah. Is a more debugged, more open power structure needed for it to be effective and legitimate globally? And look at Europe recently. Several nations, Spain, Ireland, Norway, recognizing the state of Palestine, largely driven by the Gaza war. This highlights a struggle for what the sources call principled and coherent foreign policy. It also points to a consistency gap compared to their stance on Ukraine. It shows the internal divisions, the complexities of maintaining a unified, open, diplomatic front on difficult issues.
And these tensions, balancing openness with security and local needs, they play out closer to home too, right?
Absolutely. Cross-border infiltration, for instance, it's cited as a real national security threat, impacting demographics, sparking tensions. Sources even bring up Quintilia's ancient advice against letting foreigners settle right on the borders. It offers a counter-perspective, a reminder that there's always been this tension between welcoming and protecting. It's a delicate balance.
And institutions need internal openness too. Accountability.
Critically important. We see the CBI, India's main investigative agency, facing what one source calls a glass house problem, pending cases against its own staff, some dragging on for years. This isn't just about potential corruption, it's a lack of internal transparency and accountability. That's a kind of closing off within an institution meant to uphold justice. And it erodes public trust when the guardians aren't open to scrutiny themselves.
And sadly, we see challenges even in places meant for open learning, like university campuses.
Yes, the tragic student deaths at BITS Pilani. Sources link this to immense academic pressure, but also neglect of mental health support and even drug access. It highlights a difficult paradox. Institutions push for openness of ideas, for knowledge pursuit, but they also must ensure an internal openness, a supportive environment for student well-being, especially with pressures that can feel isolating, even dangerous.
You need the support systems alongside the expectation to innovate.
Exactly. And finally, another example, concerns raised by scheduled tribe communities about land being acquired for big projects, like new IIT campuses. It brings up that tough quibble. Is development planning truly open and inclusive? Does it fully consider the needs and rights of local communities when pursuing national growth?
The challenge being ensuring that opening up for development doesn't inadvertently close off land or opportunities for the most vulnerable. Wow. We've certainly covered a lot of ground today, a really nuanced journey through this idea of openness. From ancient empires like Athens and the Mauryans using it to fuel amazing growth, to modern policies like India's Act East or GST reforms trying to forge new connections. And we definitely didn't shy away from the hard parts, the political polarization, the need for accountability, that constant balancing act between security and well-being. It's crystal clear that openness isn't some fixed state. It's dynamic. It needs constant rethinking, constant adaptation.
And this raises that important question again, doesn't it? Pursuing openness is clearly not simple. It involves real trade-offs. It needs constant vigilance, adaptability, a willingness to face the complexities head-on. Ultimately, societies, nations, even small communities, they're always making choices about how open or closed they want to be. And those choices echo through time, affecting pretty much everything.
So thinking about everything we've discussed today, the incredible prosperity openness can unlock, the innovations it drives, but also the real perils and complexities it brings. What kind of openness are you, listening right now, willing to champion or maybe rethink in your own life, in your community perhaps, your workplace, your view on global events? And what might happen if we choose otherwise? It's definitely a question worth keeping in mind.